It's a rare piece of good news out of this otherwise very grim story of the war between Israel and Gaza. The two hostages, of course, two Americans, mother and a 17-year-old daughter, Judith and Natalie Raanan from Chicago. They were here in Israel visiting relatives, and Hamas said in its statement it was releasing them for humanitarian reasons. Apparently the mother is not well, and they're now not too far from here in southern Israel being checked by the Red Cross. So good news, but of course there's 200 or so other hostages who are in Gaza, just over the back there, and so I think that including up to 30 children. So no cause for celebration because there's so many more in there, but certainly a sense of relief and how good for the families of this mother and daughter. The Israeli Defence Forces have also said, by the way, Catherine, that they believe the majority of those hostages are alive, and it's fascinating the role that Qatar is playing as a mediator.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What is the significance of the Qatari government's involvement here, and what might that mean for the fate of those other 200 hostages still being held?
Well, Qatar is the closest of the countries in the Arab world to Hamas. That's where some of the Hamas leaders live in exile, well, for their own safety. And Qatar actually puts a lot of money into Gaza, so he's close to Hamas. So the United States, in particular, has been using Qatar to get to the Hamas people holding the hostages. So they've been playing a very important mediation role. It'll be interesting to see whether they can continue to get more out. And I think the timing of this is really interesting. In a way, I think Hamas is doing it basically on the eve of what they think is the ground invasion, almost hoping that this will stall the Israelis. Might think, well, if we've got two out, maybe we wait a bit longer and get more out.
You mentioned the ground invasion. We've been speaking over the past 2 weeks about it. I mean, just how imminent is it, do you think, John?
Well, it's now seen as possibly even hours away here. It's 11 o'clock at night here, and there's a sense that they could be going in at dawn, coming in about 5 or 6 hours. Who knows? But certainly the Israelis are ready. The political decision has been made to go in. They've been given the green light. Israel believes that President Biden has essentially given them the green light, and now it's purely an operational matter for the Israeli army.
And how is the IDF preparing for any Hamas surprises?
Well, they will prepare as much as they can, and I think the Israelis are going to try to surprise Hamas too, because we know there's networks of tunnels in there, and we know that the Israelis know where some of them might be, and they have this technology that can sense if someone's moving under the ground. They'll be taking that in. I also think the Israelis will, this is the Mediterranean just behind me, I think the Israelis will actually have teams that come in from the ocean and like the US Navy SEALs and try to take parts of the Gaza by surprise. So just as Hamas might be thinking the Israelis are all coming through, the main crossing from the north, I think the Israelis will try to look at different ways. So both fighting forces are going to be trying to surprise each other. So that's why there's a big danger here for Israel, because they're a formidable army. On an open battlefield, there'd be no contest between the Israeli army and Hamas. But this is on Hamas's home territory. Hamas knows where the booby traps are, the landmines, the tunnels.
Violence, we know, John, has surged in the West Bank since the conflict began, and there's been clashing with Hezbollah on the Lebanon border. Just how significant a flashpoint could this be?
Well, that's the key question, because when the Israeli troops go in, and we presume they will, Hezbollah and Iran, of course, the country that basically has Hezbollah as a proxy, will have to make a decision. Do they decide to hit simultaneously? Or, as one diplomat put to me tonight, it's possible that Hezbollah may sit back and wait until they see Israel becoming bogged down in perhaps a bit of a quagmire inside Gaza, and then strike. Hezbollah has about 100,000 or so missiles across the south of Lebanon, hidden in the mountains and the forests there. And so the key thing will be whether Iran says to Hezbollah, let's unleash those missiles. Israel doesn't want to be fighting on both fronts, the north and the south, but it has the military capacity to do so.
On the humanitarian front, John, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has spoken at the Rafah border on the Egypt side, urging to get aid through. Where are negotiations with that? How many trucks are waiting at the border?
Well, Catherine, it's a tragic situation. There's 20 trucks, which are not enough. You've got 2.3 million people, but it's better than nothing. You've got children in there who haven't eaten or had anything to drink for a week or so, or 2 weeks since the Israelis stopped anything going in. So at least those 20 trucks will give them a bit of water and a bit of food, but they can't even get them in. And it's incredible that the President of the United States was here 2 days ago and said, I've brokered this deal, and yet still it hasn't happened. President Biden said, oh, they've got to fix potholes on the roads. You'd think the most powerful military in the world, the United States, could get potholes fixed and could make sure that crossing was opened within 48 hours. It still may not be open for another 24 hours. So we've got the incredible reality or situation where the Israeli army may go in a ground offensive before even the Rafah crossing is open for any sort of humanitarian corridor.